Hello and welcome to Justice Insight Cam. Experience unscripted police encounters exactly as they unfold on body cameras. We go further than the raw video to uncover the legal facts and educational moments of each incident. Let's analyze justice in action.
Exit the vehicle now! Exit the vehicle! Show me your hands.
Here.
The first thing you hear isn't a voice, it's glass, a sharp crack, then the unmistakable, brutal pop of tempered window glass collapsing into 1,000 glittering pieces. For half a second, the night air feels suspended, like even the streetlights are holding their breath. Inside the car, a black college student's hands are up, open palms, fingers spread, doing that careful choreography people learn from watching too many body cam videos. Outside the driver's window, a Florida deputy stands squared to the door, jaw set, baton in his hand like a verdict. And the camera, whether it's body cam, dash cam, or a phone held in a shaking hand, catches the moment the deputy chooses force over patience. One swing, then another, and suddenly a routine traffic stop turns into something that looks and feels like punishment. This is the story of the stop that went viral, the window that shattered, and the federal civil rights lawsuit that followed, seeking more than $200,000 and alleging what the video seems to show in plain sight, that the deputy didn't just break a window, he broke trust. Before we rewind, quick question. Have you ever watched a traffic stop video and thought, if he'd just stayed calm for 10 more seconds, none of this happens? Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, city and state or country, and whether you think police should ever be allowed to break a car window on a non-violent stop. And if you want more stories where the footage tells the truth louder than any press release, hit like and subscribe. Not because it's a ritual, because it helps these cases reach people who never hear what happens after the flashing lights fade. Now, let's go back to the beginning. It starts the way so many of these stories start. A car, a road, a deputy behind you. Florida at night has a particular kind of atmosphere. Humid darkness, highway glare, neon reflections sliding across paint like oil on water. The air feels heavy, and headlights cut through it in thin, sharp beams. The student is driving back from somewhere ordinary. Maybe a late shift, maybe a friend's place, maybe campus. Nothing about his posture says he's looking for trouble. But then the red and blue lights bloom behind him, and ordinary becomes procedural. He signals, he slows, he pulls over. And inside that car, there's that instant calculation. Quiet, fast, automatic. Where do I put my hands? Do I reach for my wallet now or wait? Do I turn on the cabin light? Should I record? Because for some drivers, a traffic stop is an inconvenience. For others, it's an audition for survival. The deputy walks up, not rushing, not casual, measured. His flashlight beam sweeps the interior like a search. License, registration, proof of insurance. The words are standard, but tone is never standard. The tone is where the story begins to separate. The student answers. He keeps his voice calm. He says, "Sir." He asks what he's being stopped for. And in so many cases, that question is where things bend. Because some officers treat it like curiosity. Others treat it like defiance. And once an officer decides you're being difficult, every normal human movement can be interpreted as suspicious. A glance, a breath, a pause, a question. Now the deputy wants compliance first and clarity never. The student wants clarity because clarity is safety. And in that gap, between "because I said so" and "I just want to understand," the tension grows. Here's what the camera usually shows in these moments. Not just the words, the body language, the micro decisions, the way a deputy leans closer, the way a driver's shoulders tense, the way a hand hovers an inch too long near a seatbelt latch, and suddenly that becomes a problem. The student's phone is out, or maybe it's mounted, Or maybe it's in his lap, and the deputy notices. Some officers don't care, some officers get careful, and some officers get offended, like you're documenting them, like you're questioning their authority. If the footage shows anything consistently, it's this. Authority that expects to be unquestioned reacts badly to being witnessed. The deputy tells him to do something. Maybe to step out, maybe to hand over the keys, maybe to unlock the door, maybe to stop recording. And the student hesitates, not because he's planning anything, because he's trying to do everything right. But the deputy reads hesitation as resistance. And then comes the line that changes everything. Open the door. Unlock it. Now. The student says something like, "Why?" Or, "Am I being detained?" Or, "I'm not refusing, I'm just asking." And that's where the deputy's patience drains out of him like a puncture. Because now, in his mind, this isn't a traffic stop, it's a contest, and he can't lose. The student's window is up. You can see his breath in the glass's reflection. The deputy's flashlight flares across it. There's a moment where the deputy could choose another path. He could radio a supervisor. He could slow down. He could explain. He could say, "Listen, I'm ordering you out for X reason. Here's what happens next." He could buy 30 seconds of calm. Instead, he reaches for the tool. A baton. A window punch. Something meant to break a barrier. And the barrier he chooses to break is the thing separating the driver from the hands that can grab him. That's why the sound of glass hits so hard. Because it's not just a window, it's the line between talk and force. When the deputy strikes, the student flinches. Instinct. Human. But in police narratives, flinching is often translated into something uglier. Reaching, non-compliant. Aggressive. Words that travel well in reports. Words that don't always match video. The window gives, and the deputy's hand goes in, and now the stop becomes physical. Not because of a weapon, not because of an attack, because of control. You can practically feel the moment when the student realizes, no explanation is coming, only commands. There's a detail that sticks with people who watch these clips. It's not just the breaking, it's what happens right after. The tiny shards on the seat, the glittering pile of broken glass at the door. The student trying not to move, because moving looks like resisting. The deputy yelling, because yelling sounds like justification. And whatever the student says in that moment, it's likely something human. "Why are you doing this?" "I didn't do anything. You're hurting me." And on camera, sometimes you can hear the panic crack through a voice that's been trying to stay flat and calm. That's the thing about these encounters. You can do everything right. You can speak politely. You can keep your hands visible. And still, the situation can turn because the person holding authority decided your questions were disrespect. Then comes the aftermath. Handcuffs, a search, maybe a tow, maybe citations, maybe charges that sound official and heavy, even if they don't hold up later. It's usually framed as, "He refused to comply." But video often shows something more complicated. A young man trying to understand what is happening to him, while an officer escalates faster than the situation demands. And here's where the story widens. Because once the clip hits the internet, it stops being only about that one stop. People see their own fear in it. They see their own child. They see their own late-night drive. They see the way a minor moment can become a life-altering one. And they ask the question that always comes next. Was that necessary? In cases like this, what matters isn't only what happened, it's what can be proven. Video is proof. But there's another kind of proof that becomes even more powerful in court. The paperwork, the timestamps, the policies, the training, the internal communications. Because when a federal civil rights lawsuit lands, it doesn't just say, "That was wrong." It says, "You violated rights under color of law." And that's a sentence with teeth. The legal engine behind many of these cases is something most people know by a number even if they don't know the name. Section 1983. It's the pathway that allows people to sue government officials for constitutional violations. In plain language, it's the argument that says, when you wear the uniform, you don't get to treat the Constitution like a suggestion. The lawsuit in this story, seeking more than $200,000, doesn't just focus on the shattered window. It focuses on what the broken window represents: an escalation, an unnecessary use of force, a seizure, a threat, a humiliation. And in court filings, the student side would likely frame it as a pattern of decisions that turned a minor stop into violence. Now, cities and counties usually respond the same way at first. They defend, they deflect, they say the officer acted reasonably, they say the driver was non-compliant. They use phrases like split-second decision, even when the video shows minutes of building tension. And they rely on a concept most viewers have heard, even if they hate it: qualified immunity. In practice, it often becomes a shield officers try to use to avoid liability unless a court finds that the right violated was clearly established in a very similar case. Here's what that means for the real world. It means the fight isn't only about morality, it's about precedent, about whether a judge believes the law was clear enough that the deputy should have known better. But video changes the pressure, video changes the story, because it doesn't just ask a judge to imagine what happened, it shows what happened, and it shows what didn't. In the days after the footage spreads, the student's life changes in small, corrosive ways. He's in college. That means classes, deadlines, group projects, maybe a scholarship, maybe a job. And now he's also the guy whose window was smashed on camera. Some people recognize him. Some people argue about him. Some people decide he deserved it without knowing him. That's the cruel side effect of viral justice. It turns a victim into a public debate. And while the internet fights, he has to live with the practical damage. A car window isn't just glass. It's safety. It's money. It's the ability to drive to class without rain soaking your seat. It's the feeling of getting into your own car and not seeing that moment replay in your mind. And then there's the emotional side. The lingering flinch when a cruiser pulls behind you. The pulse spike when you hear a baton tap on a door. The way your body remembers what your brain wants to forget. What does a lawsuit like this usually ask for? It asks for damages, the financial attempt to account for harm. It may include medical or counseling costs if there were injuries, replacement costs for the vehicle, compensation for emotional distress, punitive damages in some circumstances, meant to punish especially reckless behavior. And often, it asks for something that matters even more than money: accountability, policy changes, training, a paper trail that forces the department to admit, at least indirectly, that something went wrong. Because for a lot of plaintiffs, the deepest injury is being told they're lying. Video helps, but court is where the denial has to face facts. If you've ever wondered why these cases can settle even when departments say they did nothing wrong, it's because litigation is math. It's risk. It's a jury sitting in a box watching glass explode on a screen. It's a lawyer pausing the footage and asking a deputy, under oath, why he escalated when the driver's hands were up. And even if an officer is convinced he was right, the question becomes, will 12 strangers agree? Because juries don't just decide law, they decide common sense. And common sense has a hard time with the idea that breaking a window was the only option. There's also the internal side. What departments do when a video goes viral. Sometimes there's an investigation. Sometimes the deputy is placed on administrative leave. Sometimes there's a carefully worded statement. Sometimes there's silence. But even when there's silence, there are always meetings. Risk management meetings. Legal meetings. The kind where someone asks, what does the body cam show? What do we have on the driver? What will a jury think? Is there a pattern? Because the most dangerous thing for a department isn't one bad moment. It's the possibility that discovery reveals multiple moments. Complaints, prior incidents, training failures, supervisors who ignored warning signs. And in federal cases, discovery is a bright light. It pulls emails, text messages, policy manuals, disciplinary histories, dispatch logs, every detail that can show whether this was a one-off mistake or the predictable outcome of a culture. Now here's the part people miss when they argue online. Even if the student is later cleared, even if charges are dropped, even if the department says no wrongdoing found, the damage isn't undone. Because the moment was public, the humiliation was recorded, and the student has to carry it. There's a reason these lawsuits exist. They're not just about money. They're about forcing institutions to feel consequences for actions that would otherwise be absorbed and forgotten. Because without consequences, the lesson becomes, you can do this, and you'll be fine. The turning point in stories like this is often the same. It's when the narrative meets the video. The deputy's report says one thing, the footage shows another, and the gap between those two becomes the story. Was the student truly refusing to comply? Or was he confused, scared, trying to ask questions? Was the window broken because of safety? Or because the deputy wanted to end the conversation by force? Was there an immediate threat? Or was the threat created by escalation? These are the questions that decide cases, not just in court, in the public mind, because the public understands something instinctively. A uniform is supposed to reduce chaos, not create it. Imagine being the student's parent for a second. You get a call, not from your son saying, "I got a ticket," but a call that says, "I'm in cuffs," or "They broke my window," or "I don't know what's happening." And then you see the video, you see the glass, you hear the deputy's voice. You watch your child trying to keep his hands visible, and you realize there's no private way to feel this. Because it's public now. It's a clip, a headline, a comment section. That's the moment families decide, we're not letting this become normal. We're not swallowing it. We're making them answer. Federal court is not designed for comfort. It's designed for argument, motions, deadlines, depositions where every detail is questioned, and the defense will try the same angle again and again. He was non-compliant. The deputy feared for his safety. The deputy acted within training. The deputy needed to gain control. But the plaintiff's argument is usually simpler. Watch the tape, count the seconds, look at the hands, listen to the tone. Ask what could have happened if the deputy had slowed down. Because sometimes the most damning thing isn't what an officer did. It's what he didn't have to do. And that's why, even when the dollar amount in a lawsuit is only a couple $100,000, departments take it seriously. Because it's not just the money, it's the admission. Even if they write "no admission of wrongdoing" on the paperwork, the check says something anyway. It says, we don't want a jury to see this. We don't want discovery to dig deeper. We don't want more videos to surface. And sometimes, that's the closest thing to accountability you get in a system that rarely says, "we were wrong," out loud. So what does this story come down to? A window, a decision, and the thin, fragile line between compliance and dignity. Because there's a difference between refusing a lawful order and asking for clarity. There's a difference between a threat and a question. And there's a difference between policing that protects and policing that punishes. When a deputy breaks a window on camera, the public doesn't just see broken glass. They see the escalation. They see how quickly authority can become force. They see how small the trigger can be when someone with power feels challenged. And they ask the question that always follows. If that can happen to a college student on a roadside, what happens to someone with no camera, no community backing, no legal resources, no way to make the system answer? Now let's tie it back to the sound we started with. That crack, that pop, that instant when safety turned into spectacle. That moment doesn't just live in a clip, it lives in a person, in the way he grips a steering wheel later, in the way he checks mirrors, in the way he learns, too early, that calm doesn't always protect you. And the lawsuit, whatever its final outcome, exists for a reason. To put the moment on record, to force sworn testimony, to make a court look at a simple question: was the force reasonable, or was it a deputy's impatience, captured in high definition? Because the truth is, windows can be replaced, glass can be repaired, but the lesson a young person learns when a badge chooses violence, that one is harder to fix. So I'll end with this. If you were in that driver's seat, hands up, window shaking under a baton, what would you do? Would you comply with anything just to end it? Would you keep asking questions? Would you record? And do you think breaking a window should ever be an option when there's no immediate danger? Tell me what you think in the comments. Because the way we answer that question, culturally, legally, and personally, is the difference between a traffic stop being a check and a traffic stop becoming a headline.
Thanks for watching our coverage. If you gained valuable insights from this case, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Justice Insight Cam. Remain observant, stay safe out there, and catch our next investigation.